What's up everyone, welcome back to another video slash tutorial slash devlog. In this video, in continuation of our previous one regarding behavior tree and AI, we're continuing with the skeleton AI that we were building in the past. So we added like a couple animations. I'm going to show like how those animations were added, like what's the process behind it. We create a couple more tasks. So now the final result of that should be these AI. So now if you play it, you can see that now the AI, let me just eject this so you can see the AI patrolling. So you can see now the AI is patrolling like a regular one. And it's actually, there's an animation this time. So, and also he has like a sword and shoot or something attached to it. And if I play it, and let me see, like, once he sees me, he's gonna play like a sound, like a click sound. And don't bother about that widget being out of its place. So now he's gonna see me, and there you go. It's gonna play like a sound, like an alert sound. Uh, so now if he sees me, he plays like an alert sound, but I wanted like to make this extremely clear. Let me just remove that. Maybe make that a little less bigger than usual. So maybe that, so I can see a little bit better. There you go. So now once he sees me, there's a sound playing and then like an alert, like some sort of Pokemon approach, like an alert at the top of his head that shows up. So there we go. And he plays a taunt animation and he starts to follow me and chasing me. I can make him losing my sight if I wanted to, and if he loses my sight, he goes back to patrol. But once he sees me again, he starts chasing me again. I can hit him. He can also hit me. So as you can see now, he can hit me sometimes he misses, which is fine, but he can hit me. He can actually kill me. And I can actually kill him as well. So which is fine and also expected. So there we go. So this should be the final result of this video. Um, again, as in the previous video, I'm not gonna show like how everything is done or set up. I'm just gonna show the basic how I did it, and then you guys can figure it out by yourselves on your end if that approach is the same for you. So okay, so let's go step by step this time. So first of all, the animations. So the animation is pretty straightforward. I created like a C++ class, an animation instance class called U-Base AI Animation Instance. And it's like a pretty copy and paste of the previous animation instance class that I just did last time. So if you want to check it out, there's a video about how to make those animations in C++ as well. How to make an animation blueprint or instance in C++ as well. So I created that, and also I created this patrolling variable and a couple extra ones. And into the construct, I just set those up. This patrolling is true, so he's gonna be patrolling. Otherwise, he's gonna switch his state machine later on to chasing the player or something. So he's updating the animation properties based on that, and the animation properties is just grabbing like all the information from the blackboard and updating whether he's patrolling or not. So if he's not seeing the enemy, which is like if this value inside of the blackboard component, which is the can see enemy, is true, he's not patrolling, so he's gonna be chasing the player. Otherwise, if that's false, he's patrolling, so he's gonna continue patrolling. And if you go now to the the blueprint, animation blueprint, which is somewhere around here. So there you go. There we go. So that's the animation blueprint. There we go. This is the simplest animation blueprint that I think I've ever done. So this has like a state machine. I just created like a state machine. So a new state, there we go, new state machine. I named that skeleton. And inside of that, I already stored that into a cache pose. And based on that cache pose, I just grabbed that and called this layer blend per bone in the same way as the previous video. The root and this enemy over here is the body. The name of the bone is body. So I attached the default slot so we can play, animation montage for the attacks. And the result of that is like he has like an animation called idle, a strafe one, which is like when the AI is strafing. The AI is not currently strafing. I just had the animation like in place. You can ignore that if you don't want that. And I have a death animation, which is like play whenever he's killed. And this idle animation is nothing but a 2D lens space. So you have like the walking. Why it's not playing when I press Shift? Is it yeah? It's Control. So if I hold Control, you can see that there's him walking, and if he's like 600 in speed, he's gonna be running. So he can run, but I haven't set that up. I haven't set him to run, otherwise it would be just too overkill right now. Maybe I'll do like a separate enemy that can kill himself, like explode himself. Then this one might run, but a skeleton is kind of weird to see him running. And the other strafe is just like one that grabs direction and speed. Uh, so if you see the direction, how it's grabbed, let me just get to the direction variable where that is. There we go. So direction is grabbed by calculating the direction based on the player velocity and the actor rotation. So I get the direction based on that, and I then can just grab the direction other like if he's strafing by like its side or something. So he can be walking back. He can be walking like left, right, or back, or forward, or whatever, or just idling. But this is gonna be a separate video. I'm not strafing right now, so I mean I do have the animation to strafe, but the character is not strafing still, the AI. So just ignore that for now. And well, to go from idle to a strafe is pretty much whether if he's idling, he's patrolling. So if he's patrolling, he won't be strafing. So if he's patrolling, which is this initial state. So once he's patrolling, oh, that actually is wrong. So let me just change that to not. There we go. Dang it. Not. There we go. So if he's not patrolling, he's going to be strafing. And if he is patrolling, he'll switch back to this animation. So yeah, here we go. Now it's fixed. So he's going to be idling, and then he's going to, if he's not patrolling, which means like he sees the character, he's going to switch his state machine, and there we go. Now he can attack me if he wanted to. Yeah, state machine changed a little bit. Anyway, so if he's patrolling, he's not patrolling, go to strafe. If he's patrolling, go back to idle. And then regardless of the situation, whether he dies and this animation is alive, this is alive is grabbed the same way as the player character. Remember, this AI is based off the main player character, so he has like all the components and everything based on it. So I can reuse that, reutilize those functions as well, which is like the is player alive. It's returning me whether my the is alive function is set up. And remember, that's also set by the gameplay ability system. So there's a couple layers of code down here. And if you don't know how to set up the gameplay ability system as well, there's also a video in the channel setting that up. And there's a bunch of other videos as well on how I did like a couple like punching uh, um, skill, how I did the dodge animation skill, like the dodge skill, like directional dodge skill, and etc. Like how I did the potion skill through the gameplay ability system. So just check it out in this channel as well. Okay, so this is how I did the animations and stuff, and if he's dead, he's gonna play this animation, which is like just him dying. And that's pretty much how the animation works set up. Okay, cool. So that's the animation blueprint. Now let's go to the actual behavior. Before I go into the behavior tree, let me just show like a different thing as well, which is like this alert animation, which is the sound and the alert. This is pretty much controlled by these. Let me just close the animation instance, that's not important right now. So let me just go back to the base anime. So I create as well this alert AI component, and besides the like that's something that I've added in order to have these uh, exclamation point, exclamation mark, and stuff like that. So this is a widget, and this is also created here. So I just create the widget component, the alert UI, set up that to the root component, and then I just try to set the default value. However, if that's not set, you can also go back and set that manually here as well. So there is the alert UI, and you can also set that automatically if that was not grabbed by this reference, which is like the reference of where that widget is into my code. So this is also a blueprint, and this blueprint is a simple blueprint, just have like a simple animation going on over here. So which is pretty much just showing. You're not gonna see if that's on front of it. So it's just like showing alert. That's what it's doing. And this is also a C++ class. Let me just go back to the class settings. It's a class called Simple AI Alert. So if I go back to my C++, I should see under the UI class that I created. And again, if you don't know how to create UI into C++ or how to create like reference to C++ code, if later you want to interfere or do something into C++ level, there's also a video in the channel how to do that as well. So let me just go to generic. There's like simple AI alert, and whatever it's doing is just has this function called player alert animation, which is just gonna play this uh, animation right here. So it's just gonna play this animation to show up the exclamation mark. It's just gonna play that and disappear at the end of it. That's what's gonna do, and that's the thing. And once I set that up, I can later into my controller. Let me just go back to my controller. So whenever he sees the player, so let me check where he sees the player. There we go. So he initialized the blackboard, start tree, and whenever he's update his target protection, he's gonna call this solve player function. Oh, it didn't went to wherever I wanted to. So there we go. So once he sees the player, besides just setting the enemy target, he's gonna call this function do once, which is just gonna execute whatever is in it once. So this is a function that I created, and what's pretty much doing is grabbing the reference, and which means if this variable is true, so it's can execute that and set that to false. So this whatever it is going to be executed here is just going to be executed once at first glance. So if you lose the so if you basically what that means is it's only going to play the sound and the alert once and the taunt as well. So whenever he loses sight of me, it's going to go back. But then whenever he sees me again, he's not going to play that sound or the animation anymore. So it's only once. So what's doing is it's grabbing a sound inside of my project. I'm gonna probably make that a constant somewhere inside of the project. So if I need to change that later, I can just go to the file itself. But for now, that's what it is. So I just grab the reference for that sound cue, and then I load that object. Even if that's not new, I play a sound into that location, and the location is just the AI location. So I play that sound into the AI location, and also I grab my alert UI. So I cast that into a simple alert, and I play that alert animation. So that's all controlled by C++ code. So that's how things are being doing. Okay, so there we go. So let me, and if I want to later play that again, I can just call this reset to once, which is just going to set this variable to true again, and this is going to be executed again. So if at any point in time I want to, I don't know, maybe after 30 minutes lost, I can reset these alert state or something. I can just call this function, and that should do the trick. Okay, so that's how like the UI, the animations were set up. Now, how things have been set up inside of the actual behavior tree. Let's go to that. So before, I haven't changed it a lot based on the patrol point. So I just create this task, which is set movement speed, which is a behavior tree task in C++. So in C++, I have this function, this class called set AI movement speed. So I create that, and based on that, I create a constructor to it, and I override the execute that, create a variable, a public variable called new speed, which I can edit anywhere. So that means that I can just go here and change the speed whenever I wanted to. So I can just change the speed. So whenever he's patrolling, the speed is going to be 100, and whenever he's chasing the player, the speed is going to be 300. I can change that whenever I want, and that's going to change as well. So what this is doing is I'm changing the name that's going to be displayed into the behavior tree UI inside of the editor. So you can see that it's called set movement speed. This is because I override this variable name. And the speed, whenever it is executed, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing and setting the speed based on the new speed value. So initially 0, so I need to change that to something, and then whatever it is going to change and return the execution as a success. But if I cannot cast the AI reference enemy pawn, what I'm doing is I'm returning that as a failure. So it means it's going to be restarted and try again and again and again until it passes. Again, the logic between selector and sequence, it's also explained in the previous video. So this is going to be run it until something fails. And if it fails, it's going to restart it. So if it fails, it's going to keep trying until it actually passes. Okay, so that's the first task that I did, and the EQS system is the same. I removed the target reference into the blackboard here, so whatever this is doing is, if can see enemy is not set, and it's gonna abort whenever this change, so both is gonna be aborted. On resume change, I'm gonna reserve and abort everything that is in it, not only the sequence, but everything below it. So if that value changes, I'm gonna abort everything and go to the next one. And basically what this is doing is, if he's not seeing the enemy, he's going to be patrolling forever. But once he sees the enemy, which is the reverse here, so can see enemy is set, I'm going to do a couple of other things. So first of all, I need to rotate my player or my AI to the character itself. So whenever, as you can see, whenever I play it, if he sees his rotate the AI to my character. And I don't know if it was clear to see that, but let me just try to remove this real quick so I can have a bigger view. So there we go. Now there we go, the AI, and you can see that he's gonna rotate to face forward my main character. Okay, so what this is doing then now? So this function focus on an enemy is also a blueprint, a BT task class, and what I'm doing is I'm just overriding again to focus on target. So that's the name that it is into the widget itself, which is focus on target. And then the execute task, what it's doing is grabbing the controller, which is the base AI controller. It's also grabbing the blackboard component inside of that controller, and grabbing also the character that it has set as an enemy. So it's grabbing the AI controller, and then from the AI controller is grabbing the blackboard component that these AI controller is having it, and then from that blackboard component is grabbing the target, which means the enemy. So, and it's casting that to an actor. Why I do that is I then later grab the actual AI pawn, and then based on that, I just grab the rotation of my player, which is the enemy for this AI. I get the rotation to that. The desired rotation is, so basically what I'm doing here is, in order to build the rotation, the desired rotation is I grab whatever the rotation of the target is, and then I create like find local rotation based on my pawn rotation entirely, and then from the rotation, the target rotation, just grab the yaw, and then I set that into the desired rotation. And if that everything that is here is executed, I'm returning the super, which is like success. And if none of those actually passes or something, I'm gonna set that to fail. Another thing that I'm doing as well is, if I'm failing the target cast, which means I don't have a target, maybe the target was killed, maybe I don't know, once I kill the character, what it's doing is I am destroying the character after that. So once it destroys, these becomes a null pointer object, so that cast is gonna fail. So whenever that cast is failing, what I'm saying is, okay, the AI might have been already killed the target, so just go back to patrolling. So grab the enemy visible, which is can see enemy blackboard value, and set that to false, which means it's going to cancel this whole node and go back to the render patrol. So that's one. The play taunt animation is also a custom node, but this is a custom play animation node. So if you go to the C++ classes, just go to the AI tasks. What I do here is I look for all classes and I look for BT task. And there's like a play animation here somewhere. Like there we go, play animation. I create one based on that. So, and that's the taunt animation. And what this is doing pretty much is I'm just setting the name taunt animation, and I'm only gonna play this taunt animation once. So I do have this variable here called, if it already played the taunt animation once, it's not gonna play anywhere anymore. So I'm set these to false initially. So if there is an animation set to play and I have never played a taunt animation before, I'm gonna play it. So I'm gonna set that to true because this is already played. And I'm gonna return whatever is the play animation node, which is gonna play the animation until the end, etc. However, if I already played that, I'm just gonna return a succeed. So it's not gonna do anything. It's just gonna go to the next node, which is just set movement speed. So what this is pretty much doing is, if I can make that without using my second monitor, is once I play this, let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Oops, I kind of lost the window. So what's this doing is, it's really difficult to do that with a single monitor. But basically what this is doing is, the first time that displays, it's gonna play the animation, the taunt animation. There you go. As you can see that it's playing the taunt animation, and it took a while to run it. But now that he loses the reference, he's go back to patrolling. And the second time it's gonna run, it's gonna you guys will see that it's gonna be pretty fast. It's just gonna go to the next one. There we go. So it's already like moving to the target. So it returns a success because I cannot fail the execution on the sequence. Otherwise, it's gonna go back to the initial of that sequence, which is focus on target. So I would be in a loop. So I'm just gonna return a succeed regardless if I play the animation or not. So because that's intentional. Okie dokie. So why I am not being able to do that? What's happening? Oh my god. Okay, I think that's better. Okay, so I set movement speed. I already explained that. I move to the target. So whenever I see the player, I can move to the target. And then I call this simple attack uh, function. And what this is doing is, I remember I already set up the gameplay ability system. So what I did is, I went back to the, let me just go back to the drawer. Let me just go back to the blueprint, characters, playable, skills. What I did pretty much, I went to the ability, grabbed the melee attack, and I duplicate the simple attack. I pretty much just duplicate. I went with the button, duplicate it, and I moved these to the AI base enemy skills, and I call that regular attack, so simple attack, whatever. I haven't done anything in here. What I have done is, I am I did set the ability montage, which is like the attack animation, uh, or I also set like a small variation of that. So I do have like two montages, set to play. So I have these montage. I also set up in the same way as I did for the simple attack animation for the gameplay ability system, the character. So I have the same notify, the same reset attack notify as well. So whenever this is done, it's gonna call a effect, and the same way as this one. And again, if you haven't saw how that's done, please make sure to see how the gameplay ability was set up before and how those skills were set up. So now I do have the second one, and my custom gameplay abilities by default allows me to call this blueprint node that I created myself called onset animation montage, which I set the montages or the variations based on that. And what this is doing is, okay, give some sort of variation. So it's gonna, grab a random animation, either 0 or 1 once playing it, and it's gonna play like either one animation or two. So whenever it's doing the attack, you can see that he may have like 1 or 2 animations, and once he's playing one animation is the same. Now it went the second one and then the first one again. So it's gonna create some sort of variation for the enemy attack. So what I did is, I just did that. I just copy and paste, duplicate the ability, and I changed the montages, and that was it. I haven't even changed the effect because the simple attack is pretty much the same. I don't want to change anything. I just duplicated and changed the montages itself. Okay, what's happening? So once I'd done that, I went to my base AI enemy. I called the default abilities. Where is the abilities? Ability. Oh, I am onto this. So ability, and then I gave a default ability for these base AI enemy, which is the GA AI simple attack. So it was empty. I just gave one to the player, to the AI itself, which is the simple attack. And under the behavior tree, what I did is instead of I create another task, and this task was called simple attack, which is primary attack that I called this primary attack, but the name into the Unreal is going to be simple attack. What this is doing is it's executing a task, and on that task is grabbing the poem itself, which is these class over here, which is this BP base AI enemy. It's casting to that, and it's grabbing the gameplay ability system component and checking if that's valid, and if that's valid, and also the default abilities or the default attacks are not empty. I'm going to try activate an ability by class, and the ability is going to be any of the default abilities that were set. So if I have like a different default ability here, ability, there we go. If I have like multiple ones here, I think it's gonna correct. There we go. So if I have like 2, 3, or whatever, it would sort based on whatever I put it here. So if I had like 5, it's gonna select 0 to 4, and then it's gonna try to execute that ability and cast it. And that's how I execute the attack. However, there's a bug, and that's a bug I think on the gameplay ability system, which is annoying, and it's avoiding me to get proper unit testing working. Which is whenever an AI casts an ability, for some reason, and I don't know why, but for some reason, and you can see that that's exactly whenever he casts the ability, it's gonna send a bunch of errors into the console call regarding the inputs. I don't know why, because there is no controller, but if you see like error here, you see that there's a lot of, oh, he actually killed me. But you can see that there's a lot of enable and disable inputs errors going on, and that's failing um, a lot of my unit tests. So I'm probably gonna need to understand. I asked into a forum that I have access to in Facebook to see if anyone would like to know how to fix that. And if you know how to fix it, please let me know. I don't know how to fix that so far, at least. So, but yeah, that's not a bug that is impacting the game itself. It's more like it's impacting me for writing automated tests for this feature itself because it's failing because of this issue. Okay, so it's casting the ability, and if the ability is casted successfully, I'm just returning the super, which is going to return like success. However, if it fails to cast into whatever one of those ifs that I put it, I'm just going to return it failed, and then it's going to go back and re-execute everything. But again, the focus on target is going to return to the character. The play animation is not going to play anything. Set movement speed is going to set it again. It's going to move to the target. If it's nearby, it's not going to do anything, and then it's going to try to simple attack again. I create also display celebration in the same way as I created the first the taunt animation. I create this killer player uh, function based on the EUBT task play animation, and pretty much what that's doing is, let me just go to whatever it is, I call play celebration, which is if he kills the character, he's gonna celebrate, and the guy's gonna play like an animation trying to celebrate. So first of all, what's gonna do is it's gonna cast the controller to see if there is a controller, and if there is a controller, he's gonna try to grab the blackboard component, and based on the blackboard component, he's gonna cast based on the AI enemy, which is the target, instead of the blackboard component. He's gonna cast that target into the D festival and store that into this variable. And if this succeeds, which means that I do have a target, I'm gonna check if that's alive. So if that's alive, if that's not alive, sorry, if that's not alive, I'm gonna return this super, which is like play the animation. So I do cast a target to my defestival character, and if that's a success cast, I check if that's still alive, and if it's still alive, I do then execute this animation. Otherwise, I just return succeed. And again, even though I kill and I destroy my character after killing it, I do leave it for, I don't know, 3 or 4 seconds. So these casts is always going to be successful whenever the AI kills the player. And the celebration is just a simple animation here. So it's like this celebrating animation. So he's like moving the sword like a lot of times up into the air. So if you see now, you see that I'll let him kill me. So let me just eject this. So you can see that he can kill me. There we go. Boom. Boom. And you can see that all UI is being updated properly. He can kill the player. Whenever he kills, he starts celebrating. And he keeps celebrating until the player is not visible anymore. So whenever I destroy the player, he goes back on patrolling, which is the intention. So he plays like this celebration for at least 3 times, which is like the amount of time that the corpse is into the floor. So which is expected. And I think that's pretty much it. The other thing that I would like to share as well is like how I did attach this sword and shield to this. Again, it's similar to whatever, if you haven't saw like how to attach things, there's also a video in the channel how to set up the whole inventory system and the attachment, the clothing system. It's pretty much the same way. However, what I did for this AI is, since this is based off, let me just close every one of those tasks. Let me just go back to the AI itself. So there we go. So on the gameplay, what I'm doing is I created like 2 variables here called primary and secondary like weapon sockets. And what this is doing is on the AI based enemy, I set this into whatever socket I want to attach the weapons, because the primary and the second weapons are attached to a specific socket of the main character, which is different from the AI model that I got. So I wanted to have like a different way of being able to, customize this and still reuse. And for this, I do have this primary weapon socket and the second weapon socket, which is those 2 variables that I created into the AI base class itself. And what this is allowing me to do, initially I'm just setting that to sword and shield socket, but I can change that because this is an edit anywhere variable. So if I open that up and I go to the default classes and I search for what's the category, it's weapons. You can see that I do have the ability to change that on in runtime into the editor. What this is allowing me to do is the initial weapons or the initial off and defensive weapons, since this is a character that was like this AI was inherited from the main player character. The off and the def weapon and the main character are in different sockets with different names and different positions and that kind of stuff. So what I basically did is I override that on the construction script and I set up the attachment of those 2 weapons to whatever is the socket that I specify with first. So this allows me to specify a socket here, and already into the blueprint level, I can see then being updated properly. So let me just go back to the class default, sword socket, and once I play it, if I haven't done anything wrong, you can see that it's already now with the whole thing is set up and attached. And if I just duplicate this class or create a blueprint based off this new class, oops, and I create like a blueprint based off these new classes, what this is gonna do is going to, I can override those variables as well and override the meshes itself, like the offensive and the defensive weapons, to different sockets, and I would still be able to reuse my code throughout the project itself. So yeah, now I can. Now this is looking a little bit more than like with the game, so I can, he can move to me, and he starts to attack me. I want to dodge, but it's difficult to dodge. I want to attack him. Oops. There we go. Dodge one attack, dodge, and then I can kill it. And after 1 or 2 or 3 seconds, he goes away. And if I wanted to recover myself, I do have like a potion, and I can recover my HP in the same way as the stamina recovers by itself automatically. And again, this AI, if it's too overkill, I can just always go back to the AI, look for the abilities. So I do have my attributes here. So if I want like the AI to be, less powerful, now he's giving me like 10 of damage. I can put like, I don't know, 8 or 3, and he can be less powerful than that. So his attacks now are gonna hurt less. So it's gonna be less challenge to the player to kill it. Even though it's a bit difficult still. Oops, I committed a mistake. There we go. Sorry, buddy. There we go. So this is pretty modular right now. So which is fine by me. So, and then he can regulate based on the reusability of the code. And that's it. Hope you like it.